अरे ऐसे टुकुर टुकुर कहाँ देख रहे हो? हाँ, पहचाने नहीं काम का? अरे हम पीके हूँ पीके.
Hi, my name is Amit, and this is what I'm talking about. So, for our first scene breakdown, I thought we'd take a look at one of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite movies of all time, PK. For those of you who haven't yet seen the film, I'm afraid there are going to be spoilers ahead. So, I urge you to watch the film first, because it's one of the best films made by one of the finest filmmakers working right now. So, PK starts with a lone alien, stranded helpless literally in the middle of nowhere, when he has his remote stolen from him. And he's left wandering around in the cold, unaffectionate society until he befriends a warm and kind Bhairav Singh, played wonderfully by Sanjay Dutt, who sees and treats him as a human being. Get it? Anyway, Bhairav Singh sets PK off to Delhi with the objective narrowed down to finding the remote in order to get back home. But instead finding the remote, he finds himself entangled in the cobweb of God, religion, and the people who believe in them. This is where Jaggu comes in his life, and they both work together in order to help each other out to achieve their own objectives. During all this, PK finds himself attracted to Jaggu, and when he tries to do something about it, he sadly has his heart stomped on. Sad and dejected, he tries to make sense of it all, and probably even move on, while waiting for his Bhaiya Bhairav Singh at the station when this happens. With no apparent reason whatsoever, the world around him shatters with an explosion, and he again, like a child, is left stranded, all confused, in the middle of a wreck. What follows is the sound of going deaf, indicating an obvious physical impact by the explosion, but looking at PK, we also get a sense of him discovering a newfound reality on this planet, which is further invigorated when this happens. We ourselves, after seeing countless such sequences in copious amount of movies and TV shows, not only find this new, but wrong. This doesn't feel right, but it works, because it does invoke a sense of disturbance in you. More on that in a while. But the thing that makes this choice of this song at this point utterly perfect for this sequence is that this is PK's subjective perspective, called upon by the fact that one is assuming it's probably his first such experience. He might not even have heard of such occurrences existing. The slow motion and the music tries to zone you in into his disorienting self and maybe share a glimpse of the shock he is going through. At this point, he is not even thinking about Bhairav Singh, not because he doesn't care, but again, the sheer jolt of that explosion has pushed him into a trance, clearly indicated by him going one way while the rest go the other, overseeing the horror and destruction. Let's talk about the song for a while. It's a beautiful song called Asma Pe Hai Khuda from a 1958 movie called Fir Subah Hogi, which is an adaptation of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. As Raskolnikov does in the book, the lead character, played here by the legendary Mr. Raj Kapoor, goes through a series of absurd, disturbing events. One such event is when he oversees a house, having a wedding and a funeral at the same time, leading him to contemplate about the indifference that God nowadays treats us with in this song. The idea of questioning the existence of God in the song shares a thread of resemblance with the theme of the movie. Lyrically, the song describes exactly what is happening in the scene, possibly the very reason of this song being chosen for this scene. But for me, there is another element the song lends to the movie, a weirdness due to the juxtaposition of what you're listening to what you're saying, which consequently amplifies the emotion of sadness. The same principle can be applied in comedy, in dramas particularly while showcasing violence, and broadly in stand-ups.
Hey, what's up? Are you guys mad at at me?
Oh, there you are. Ooh, you filthy top of the tea. Oh, I'm gonna drink you first. You can't wait to get into my dirty little mouth, you dirty top of the tea, can you? Look at you. Oh, you know what they say? First in the mouth, first out the...
Introduced to the world of humor in the 18th century, but really took hold after being developed by Schopenhauer, Kant, and Kierkegaard. It's basically something that violates our mental patterns and expectations. It's two or more inconsistent, unsuitable, or basically incongruous parts put together as one complex object or assemblage, consequently creating an emotion that is more profound than the individual parts themselves.
There is cookie and punch for us to enjoy, and we can, Nate, talk about white brotherhood. Thank you all for coming. White power!
And that's not using score, but instead using needle drops and songs to help create a mood and create a reality.
Martin Scorsese quite famously applies this principle with the use of music in his movies.
For me, score is of, well, I love the scores, the older the classical cinema. But when I started to get to make films, I found that the scores were not the way I wanted to go. I found that my life would always been scored by source music that was coming from a radio or records or across the street in a jukebox and in a car, and images would come to mind, and very, very ironic, if you want to call counterpoint to certain scenes I was seeing while this music was being played in reality. And I wanted to reflect that reality, but also have the source music become score and take over. Which meant not only the sound of the music, that is the type of song it was, but also the lyrics, interwoven between dialogue as the actors are speaking.
Let's try this out. Let's rewatch this scene with the typical sad music. Now let's watch the original. Did it feel a bit different the second time round? Well, of course it did. It felt kind of weird and absurd, which for all it's worth, fits kind of well with the absurd elements in the rest of the film. The nudge kind of breaks him out of his trance and into his sad reality, accompanied with rather conventional elements in the sound to emphasize the poignancy in the solemn moments of the scene, like discovering the last remnants of a dear friend, which triggers a nudge in him filled with worry and care, making him find his friend and hoping him to be safe. And then, the dreaded moment. It's quite amazing how these different elements come together and give us a wholesome experience, one that is complete, exploring the full range from shock to absurd to deep sadness. Much like on a broader level, his movies have, from extremely funny,
Yes, sir. Can you tell us how an induction motor starts? Stop it!
to somber to utterly shocking.
That blast scene, if you remember in the film, that whole scene, we initially toyed with it for many a days of how we're going to shoot it, how we're going to show real fire coming out of the compartment. We actually wanted to do it live, but there were problems with how to get a compartment. Either you create a railway compartment, then shoot it. That makes it, restrictive in terms of cost. How will the smoke come? How will the characters move through the smoke? There were many issues. We wanted, dust particles floating all over them. And the moment you try to do it real, it's very tough. But through this film, I learned that, all this is possible. All this is possible. So when I actually go to the train sequence, I actually shot it in a day. The whole sequence was shot in one day. And all that you see has been created in post. The entire fire, all those dust particles in air, the smoke, the sparks, the entire blast, all that has been completely created on machines.
For me, he is one of the most inventive filmmakers out there, who loves cinema and understands it. At a time when only remakes and sequels are the norm, he gives us a breath of fresh air in the form of a naked alien and shenanigans.
If you choose to do what you enjoy, you will automatically excel. If you automatically excel, you will also succeed in the conventional way.